Hello everyone, my name is Isaac Bechtel, and I will be explaining an issue that is highly controversial surrounding the sports world. Every sports team has a specific name that revolves around a mascot. Today I'll be talking about the arguments for whether or not we should eliminate potentially racist and offensive team mascots. For this to be a controversial topic in the first place, there has to be something that society views to be problematic. The reality is that people can find anything stereotypical and offensive. Mascots are said to stereotype different ethnicities and groups simply by existing themselves. Individuals also state that the mascots provide a misled understanding that can lead to wrongful beliefs. These things allow room for continued judgment and disrespectful relationships with consumers and the mascot itself. Since mascots can be found as offensive and stereotypical, the public views these mascots in a different light than they are intended to be viewed. To further understand the topic, we must first place a definition with the term of offense. However, the term is quite hard to define because offense is interpreted differently among individuals. The most confusing part about the term is that there are many individual parts of the term and whether the term is being used in the correct manner or not. For instance, someone can be generally offended by something, but this offense is derived from false opinions and facts, so they can be deemed as mistakenly offended. Other times, individuals are oblivious to things that should offend them, so they could be experiencing a mistakenly unoffended attitude. So for this topic, I'll just define the term as an annoyance perceived to disregard one's beliefs or feelings that result in a feeling of resentment. Everyone indulges in the act of stereotyping, whether they know it or not. But not everyone knows what the term means. According to a distinguished professor at the University of Massachusetts, a professor named Professor Lawrence Blum defines the term stereotype as a false or misleading association between a group and an attribute that is held by the subjects in a rigid manner. But the problem with stereotyping, just as offense, each individual forms different beliefs about others. This is where the misinterpretation and misrepresentation occur. Generally, stereotypes are considered to be harmful in nature because they express false understandings of individuals that can lead to potential bias. Regardless of an intended meaning or the truth of an individual or mascot, stereotypes will still derive from particular individuals and groups because this is just what people do. Let's look for example of this. The Washington Redskins have a mascot of the Redskins, and the commissioner of the NFL stated that the reasoning for using the mascot Redskin is because it is meant to represent a unifying force that stands for strength, courage, pride, and respect. But even with the efforts to withdraw the community from any stereotypes individuals, many individuals are still revolting against the term. As I said before, the Redskins attempted to avoid any stereotypical comments made about their mascot. But individuals feel the need to associate the mascot with a group of people that they believe are Redskins. This is human nature as well because everyone stereotypes individuals based on their ethnicity and skin color. For example, many people believe that Asians must be intelligent, that blacks are naturally gifted athletes, and that Mexicans are hardworking. But these sheer examples further explain that anything can be made into stereotypes. This is because not all Asians are super smart, and not all blacks are talented athletes, and not all whites are supremacists that oppress the minorities. How about we provide some examples of mascots and link them to the amount of offense they receive? Some mascots are inanimate objects, and they seem to offer minimal offense to individuals. For example, the Houston Rockets and the Arizona Cardinals. Other mascots serve as a historical entity and tell a story of the past. These seem to offer a little more offense, but still do not receive backlash from society. For example, the San Francisco 49ers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But other mascots that hold historical meaning are found to be very offensive to individuals because they can be linked to race and ethnicity. For example, the Washington Redskins, as talked about earlier, and also Indians. Now that you have some background information that will help you judge your feelings about this topic, let me introduce you to the common arguments that are circulating around the media and by word of mouth. Some individuals feel that some mascots are highly offensive and that change needs to be made. These individuals link these mascots as an act of racism. Now, the term racism is any discriminatory or disruptive behavior pertaining to members of another race. These individuals argue that fans and other individuals are oblivious to the offense of the names such as Redskins and Braves and Indians because they are not of the Indian or Native American descent. But other individuals of this descent are feeling offended by this. There is one problem with this statement that I'll explain a little further into the presentation. These individuals also bring in nationalism into the argument. They stated that America is attempting to become free from any oppression. So a good place to start showing this would be in the mascots of sports teams. While some individuals are fighting for a change in mascots, other individuals are the complete polar opposite. They believe that mascots have no requirements to be termed racist. They explain that teams such as Redskins have chosen their team names for other reasons than race and ethnicity, and rather that being racist is the polar opposite of what they are doing. They also state that if humans look at the mascots in the way that they were meant to be, rather than in an offensive manner, they will look at it with dignity and pride. Perhaps individuals finding offense for others are the racist ones themselves. Now that both arguments have been stated, there is an interesting point that I would like to bring up. I found it very interesting that both arguments use the same definition of racism and found compelling arguments even with the different viewpoints on the topic at hand. Perhaps maybe the answer is somewhere in between. Now, before deciding for yourself what should be done with this issue, you should know if there are any policies and requirements that pertain to mascot use. The only policy that is present is that a team cannot interfere with the face of another team. This meaning that a team cannot change their name and be confused with another team. This is only an effort to protect the other team's trademark. Other than this, there are no restrictions on what teams can be named. For instance, teams have wild and outrageous names all over the world. In Houston, Illinois, there is a mascot called the Corn Jerkers. Other countries have teams that go by the Cotton Pickers and the Danger Starks. But this does not mean that it will be this way forever. Perhaps in the near future we will see a policy that restricts any stereotypical names for sport teams, but we may also see no change. Clearly, this argument is very controversial, so there must be some impact that it has on the direct society. Some fans believe that this is having no impact and that this is just a small argument that should never occur. Other fans are attempting to change the views of others by posting videos and by taking social positions themselves in hopes to diminish the amount of names that they deem controversial. But the reality is that this has a huge impact on the sports world itself. Some teams are making arrangements to change their name and mascots in an attempt to keep their following rather high. Others are experiencing threats and other social actions that can ruin their corporation, so team owners can be found making remarks and making changes that will ultimately benefit their team in the end. For this assignment, I was told to offer my own personal thoughts on this issue, so I've made a few points that show my view. Personally, I'm a white male who has a passion for sport. Due to this, I'm very biased and blind to any offense that could be taken from the names of mascots. However, I believe individuals are taking a standpoint that is above reality. Mascots and names are given in an attempt to make the team feel strong, powerful, competitive, and successful. Today, there is no rational reason an individual would name a team in an attempt to impose offense and racial discrimination to an individual or group or a particular ethnicity. In some cases, particular teams get support from Native American and Indian tribes to use their name in respect of the positive attributes they impose. For example, Florida State has a mascot, the Seminole. The Indian tribe of the Seminoles have signed off in support of the use of the name, and individuals still claim that the name is offensive for the group. If individuals view this team mascot as offensive, then I believe that they themselves are being mistakenly offended. This is because they are offended for a group of people who are not offended themselves. The majority of individuals who are offended by sport team names do not identify as the group that is being used as the mascot. These individuals believe that the mascot is being used in a racist way when it absolutely is not. Due to this, these individuals are being racist themselves. Although I believe that individuals do find offense to particular mascots and team names, those that can be offended themselves and not offended on behalf of others, there should be no change in the future. If a change is to be made, then there should be mandatory explanation of why the team is using the name. When this happens, individuals might understand that these mascots are not being used for a racial Rather, they are being used for positive attributes and definitions. Also, let's be honest. Changing complete organizations and teams to morph the beliefs of individuals will never end. It could also start a road to the end of sports programs in the country. Individuals will continue to push their beliefs into the community, which will ultimately doom other individuals. This, I believe, is not fair at all. I was also told to interview a few people to get their views on the topic themselves. I attempted to interview people of all differences. The first was a 45-year-old white male named Jeremy. He was my father, and he stated that both the speaker and I are white males. Therefore, our perspective may be the same for that reason. If we were from another demographic group in our society, our perspective may be different. That said, my comment could be viewed as racial profiling in and of itself. This discussion could go on forever since everyone creates their perception from their own life experiences. The second person I interviewed is a colleague of mine. She is a white female that is 18 years old. Maya stated, "Personally, I believe there should be a line drawn around the issue of offense. The problem with this is that different individuals will draw the line in different places, this allowing for continued stereotypes and room for offense that is not intended. However, I do not find any current mascots as offensive, but that could derive from me being a majority in the United States." Finally, I decided to interview my best friend. Jay is a black male that is 20 years old. He stated, "Personally, I find offense from particular team mascots and names. In addition, these names are adopted by the schools themselves. I go to a college where the mascot is the Colonials, and every student is presented with a freedom card. Being black, I cannot help but feel discriminated against due to the black complications with freedom in the past. However, even though I do find some offense to particular names, I don't believe that there's a way to stop this from happening in the future. Many of these names have been around forever, and attempting to change a franchise could destroy it. I don't believe anything should be done until there is a way to figure out how to safely change the names without destroying franchises and making this a huge deal." Throughout this presentation, I outlined the main arguments and also gave a few examples of personal thoughts on the topic. I urge you to make a decision on your own. This argument will not resolve itself, and it is an awkward stage where nothing is being done. Perhaps you can make the choice to first-handedly support mascots by attending rallies and making the public aware of it. Or you might take the exact opposite and fight the teams that have a mascot that you deem offensive yourself. But either way that you choose, I wish you luck, as this argument seems to never have an end. Thank you.